first time, the federal government is on the cusp of regulating a class of deadly so-called forever chemicals out of America's drinking water. The EPA's proposal applies to 6 of those chemicals, known as PFAS compounds, and would require water utilities to clean any detectable level out of their systems. Doing so could cost billions, and thousands of their chemical cousins would remain unregulated. Annie Snyder covers this closely for Politico, and she joins me now. Annie, welcome and thanks for joining us. Let's back it up here a little bit, though. There are thousands of these PFAS chemicals. Drinking water is just one place that they're found. So where else do we find them? How common are they?
They are extremely common. They have been in widespread consumer use since the 1940s. They have an extremely strong chemical bond that makes them very useful for commercial purposes. They've been used in nonstick cookware. You know, here you're not supposed to use your knife in a Teflon pan. That's because of these chemicals. They've been used in camping gear, stain-resistant carpeting, military firefighting foam that's been sprayed at bases and installations around the country and at airports around the country. They are ubiquitous in the environment. And because of that very strong bond that makes them so useful, they're also extremely difficult to break down in the environment. So once they're there, they typically stay there and they bioaccumulate. That's not just in the environment, in the rivers and streams where we get our water, it's also in American blood. We breathe them in, we eat them in our food, and they're in food packaging as well. And we also get them through our drinking water.
So why would we want to regulate them out? What do we know about the links between some of these chemicals and negative health impacts?
Yes, well, as you mentioned, there are thousands. There's estimated to be 12,000 chemicals in this class. Many of them we know virtually nothing about, but we do know something about some of them. The best studied chemicals, these 2 that have been in production that were in production since the 1940s, have been pretty clearly linked with cancer and other health ailments. Things like high blood pressure, developmental impacts, birth defects, and also immune system effects. One of the kind of more interesting effects that we see at extremely low levels of exposure is an impact on the immune system that makes vaccines less effective.
So the EPA is saying they're going to be regulated up to detectable levels. Does that mean lower levels are considered safe?
Not exactly. So EPA's proposed regulation here would limit 6 PFAS. 2 of these chemicals, the 2 that I mentioned earlier that are the most well understood and are actually no longer in production, would be limited to detectable levels. So EPA has actually said that levels even 1,000 times lower than what can be detected are still dangerous to human health, can still cause negative health impacts. But practically speaking, all that they can require is for utilities to monitor for these chemicals, and if they find them, treat them so thoroughly that they're below those detectable limits. The other thing that EPA did in this regulation is include limits for 4 other types of PFAS chemicals. And some of these are chemicals that are still in commercial use. In fact, 2 of them are the ones that the chemicals industry turned to when they phased out those 2 older chemicals. And for those, EPA is taking sort of an innovative approach, which acknowledges that these chemicals might have more severe health effects in combination than they do individually.
So, Annie, we know some states have already moved to regulate these compounds to some degree, but this is a proposed federal standard. How easy would it be for water utilities to meet these new standards? What would it take?
Technologically speaking, there are absolutely technologies that drinking water utilities could install that would treat for these chemicals that are pretty well proven. We've got things like granular activated carbon and reverse osmosis. The technologies are there, but they are not as cheap. They are very expensive to install in the first place, and they also have ongoing operational costs. And the way that our law is set up right now, those costs would be borne by customers. Those would show up on people's regular monthly or quarterly water bills. They would not be paid for by the polluters who put those chemicals there in the first place.
Annie, when you step back here, how big a deal is it that there could be a federal regulation for this, knowing what we know about the potential impacts and this compound, and the chemical compounds more widely? How big a deal is this?
It's an extremely significant step. A little bit of context here. The US has not regulated a new contaminant in drinking water in nearly 30 years. The Congress overhauled the Safe Drinking Water Act in 1996 and made it significantly more difficult for EPA to regulate chemicals, to regulate contaminants in drinking water. And so, if this rule is finalized, and that is a big if, it would be the first major upgrade to the safety of the nation's drinking water in nearly 30 years. And what's worth noting is those same technologies that can treat for these PFAS chemicals would also, in many cases, remove other contaminants from the drinking water as well. And so it could have some very significant improvements to the nation's drinking water overall.
As Annie Snyder from Politico joining us tonight. Annie, thank you so much.
Thank you.